did you get the motivation to change and to also turn on a dime like you've been doing?
Wow, that has definitely been a journey. And I have an inscription on my wall that, before I got remarried was on my wall to remind me, because I like having those motivational quotes around my house, because really words have power, right? And the Bible even talks about that. So what we pour into ourselves, we begin to digest that. And the quote that I have on my wall says, enjoy this moment, because this moment is your life.
Hi, I'm Glennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe.
Thank you so much for all the downloads, all the subscriptions, the likes, and the comments. And please, let's keep this going, because I have lined up for you in the year 2025 some fantastic interviews. In fact, I don't know when you'll be listening to this, but it doesn't matter, because all of the interviews I do are what we would call in the business evergreen. They're relevant for whatever time you might be listening to it. And today's topic is definitely relevant, because it's something that we all think about, or should be thinking about, as we go through this whole aging process, this wonderful, fantastic V.I.B.E aging process. And what I'm talking about is our own self-care and self-love. And I know you hear a lot about that. You throw it around, but let's face it, the whole idea of self-care and self-love is different as you age. It's a different kind of midlife experience. And so that's why I'm so glad to have with us Dr. Janae Bishop-Nesbit. She is an education productivity consultant and coach. And basically, she helps individuals facing stress and burnout to thrive, recharge, and rise by enhancing their resilience, boosting their productivity, and fostering work-life harmony. I can't wait to get into this topic. It's wonderful to have you here, Dr. Janae. Thanks so much for being on the V.I.B.E Living podcast.
Oh, you have an amazing podcast, and I feel so humbled and blessed to be on your podcast. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you. Tell us a little bit about you and your background, and how you got to be so interested in the whole idea of helping midlife women when it comes to stress and burnout, and the whole idea around all of that, especially as we age.
Oh my, thank you so much. Well, I'm a native New Yorker who happens to be living in South Carolina right now. And when I was in New York, of course, that's a hustle and bustle type of place. And so I got used to operating from that pace. And then I joined the military. I was an officer in the Army. And as an officer, you're in charge of many different things and of staff and what have you. And so again, I got accustomed to just juggling a lot of different things. And I was of the mindset that, I'd rather multitask. And we're finding now that may not really be a good thing. But while in the military, got married, had kids, and as many women out there are aware, when you're married, have kids, and you have a profession, that is a juggle as well. And so I ultimately, after 28 years, I became widowed. I changed careers. I moved to another state, and again, juggling a number of different things. And I came across this research by the National Wellness Institute that was focusing on the 8 dimensions of wellness. And so there I was in midlife, looking at how was I going to reinvent and restructure myself. So I took those 8 dimensions and wrote a couple of books and looked at how was I going to move forward. And so I realized that part of me creating that holistic life for myself was probably something that a lot of women going through what I've gone through in many different chapters of my life were going through. And that's what I feel so passionate about, being able to share that with folks. And so as a result, I got remarried in midlife, established a new career in midlife, love living in South Carolina in midlife. And I just encourage everyone out there as well that it's never too late to create that better version of yourself, get that vibe, and make the rest of your life the best of your life.
It's really interesting too, because there is definitely a flipping of the script, a switching, a transition, a transformation that happens during the midlife experience. So let's talk a little bit about that. What are some of the unique challenges that you think that most women go through during their midlife experience?
Oh, wow. I would say that probably the biggest challenge is realizing that they're not alone. Oftentimes we think that we're the only ones that's going through it. But mainly when I look at what's happening with women in midlife, it's career choices, it's personal choices, and then it's identifying themselves in this new stage of life. So when we look at career choices, what we may have enjoyed doing when we were, a couple of decades younger, or even just last year, we realized, wow, this isn't really fulfilling me. I don't feel that this is my purpose. When we look at our personal lives, we may be realizing that, we're caregivers. We're also having to take care of ourselves. And for many of us, maybe even neglecting ourselves. But then we also might be in that in-between stage where we have children who might have boomeranged back at home, and we're trying to ease them out of the nest. But then we may be becoming grandparents. So there's a new facet to our parenting role and how we see things in life as we're moving forward. So that career impact, the personal impact, and then the idea of realizing that your self-care is not selfish. Audre Lorde, an activist, is quoted as saying, self-care isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. And realizing that it's so important to take care of ourselves so that we can pour into that old career or new career, so that we can pour into those family responsibilities, so that we can pour into that new version of ourselves. The reality is this: we need to realize that we're all living longer, God willing, right? And so it's so important that we not only live longer, but that we have a quality of life, so that when we look at that person in the mirror, we're saying, yeah, I did the darn thing, and it's not too late.
And it's not too late. A lot of the midlife experience really is realizing that not only do you have a lot of experience and you've been through a lot of things, but you also have developed something that has kept you thriving, which is what you call the key to thriving, and that is resilience. What are some
Yes.
strategies that you talk to women about when it comes to enhancing their resilience?
Oh my, fabulous question. I think a key mindset to have is that, especially women in midlife who may be juggling career, personal life, and other things, is realizing that there's no such thing as work-life balance. I prefer to embrace the mindset of work-life harmony. So it's so important for us in midlife as we are trying to create work-life harmony, which differs from work-life balance in that work-life harmony is more of a holistic approach, because you're never going to be able to say, well, I'm going to put 25% here, 25% there, 25% there, 25% there. It's never going to really be balanced. When I was going through graduate school, my family went through it with me because I was placing so much energy in getting that degree or getting that promotion when I was working in the school setting as a principal. So when we look at the definition of work-life harmony and working holistically, there are a couple of things that women need to consider, and that includes setting clear priorities, identifying what's most important in both our personal lives and in our professional lives, and understanding that our core values impact how we identify what's important in midlife. A second thing that I would want women to consider is to embrace flexibility. Sometimes we get in the mindset that, we have to be rigid. This is the way that I've always done it, so I've always got to do it that way. But no, not so. The one constant in life is change. A third thing to consider too is practicing mindfulness. Even the Bible talks about being still so that we can hear and move forward in the way that we're to go. And so that may simply be meditation, deep breathing exercises, or simply taking moments to check in with yourself during the day. And here's another interesting thing too that comes up in the literature. It's about creating dedicated spaces. So many women are working remotely inside of the home, or they may be working outside of the home as well, but have that dedicated space. And in that dedicated space, like I love this, your background, have items, art, or pictures of family members that really pour into you emotion, because you're spending a lot of time
I so
there.
agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. One of the
Yes.
first things that I did when I left corporate America, it was an intrinsic thing. I really didn't know what I was doing. I wish if I had started, my business 18 years ago, there was like nothing around that could support me and training me to do what it is that I wanted to do. And back then, ignorance is bliss. I didn't know. I was so naive. I didn't know know that what I wanted to do wasn't being done. I didn't even know what that was. But one thing I
Yes.
intrinsically knew was I needed to have my own space, a space where I can go and be quiet, where I could go and come up with ideas, where I would feel safe and not necessarily have to explain myself to anyone. And I realized
Yes.
that sometimes in situations women may not have the space to do, a place with a door, but you can have a corner. You can have a part of a room that is your space, a chair set up there with a lamp and plants and where your favorite book, your favorite throw, a place to put your feet up. And everybody knows that when you go to that corner of the room, that's off limits to anybody else. That's your quiet space, your quiet time. Or maybe you
Yes.
go there after
Yes.
everybody's gone. But the whole idea is creating that space, that energy that's just for you, that supports just you, that feeds into you. And I think every woman should have that because actually having your own space, that own special little corner of the world that's just for you is a great way to boost your productivity. Because I know in midlife, sometimes it's hard to be productive. We're playing so many roles, and we got to begin to start thinking of some life hacks to get our things in while we're helping everyone else. What kinds of things do you do? Do you talk to people about when it comes to boosting their productivity in midlife?
So I want to share with people how important it is to set healthy boundaries. One of the things that I've struggled with over the years is that no is a complete sentence. And being able to set those boundaries as it relates to work or as it relates to your personal life. And that's so important because that enables us to set aside and schedule time for the self-care, the hobbies, the relaxation. And those got to be non-negotiable items because if we don't pour into ourselves, we're going to have an empty cup and not be able to pour into other things as well. Another thing to consider is the mindfulness and the meditation. For myself, I have very short meditations in the morning after I do prayer. Some women that I've worked with, they embrace devotion. I love that. I do gratitude journaling, but just an opportunity to be able to jumpstart your day in a way that comes from stillness. Something else to consider too is physical activity. And it doesn't mean, joining a HIIT program or a boot camp necessarily, but regular exercise. The literature tells us that if we have exercise that we actually enjoy doing, whether it's dancing, walking, I have a friend who got into salsa and she and her husband loves it, or even swimming. If you're a member of a local gym or the YWCA, aim for at least 30 minutes of moderate exercise most of the days of the week. And that mind-body connection is what's going to really help us moving forward. Another thing to consider too is social connections. Research has shown that there is longevity attributed to individuals who have social connections. Sometimes as we age gracefully, some of us may tend to retreat and become more introverted, maybe because our personalities that we perceive has changed or our physicality has changed. But those social connections really helps us immensely. Years ago when I became widowed and I'm oldest and the only girl in my family, one of the oldest grandchildren, oldest cousins, so I was accustomed to having to operate on my own to put things in place. But when that traumatic experience occurred, I went through not only one but two grief counseling programs in order to be able to work on who is this new version of myself now that I'm not married, widowed, now that I'm empty nested, now that I'm changing careers and such. And I tell you, being a part of those two support groups really was transformational for me. That's why I love what you do. You have membership program, you have your Facebook page, you have your podcast, and that lays a foundation for many women to come together. That being said, I don't want to leave out healthy lifestyle choices. When we're
Yes.
going through menopause, the hormones kind of shift. And it used to be a time where I could just say, oh, over the weekend, I'm going to eat in such a way or drink more water, and everything just kind of dribbles off, right? That was my much, much younger years. But then when we get into a certain stage of life and our hormones kind of shift, it takes a little bit more effort. So I definitely emphasize to individuals the importance of having proper nutrition at this stage in life, the importance of our sleep hygiene, getting enough sleep, and the importance of hydration. How much we drink and being able to stay hydrated is really what keeps our metabolism going. Additionally, I want to encourage everyone to pursue your interests. Even though I was moving out of the career as an administrator in education and moving into coaching and consulting, it is something that I'm very much passionate and interested in. And so I want everyone out there to realize that as you're moving forward through this amazing stage that we call midlife, it can be very exciting. You know, the fantastic 40s, the fabulous 50s, the sassy 60s. Let's just do the darn thing.
As you were talking, I was just thinking about the fact that yes, you've gone through a period in your life of embracing change and emergence, and I want to
Yes.
talk more about that. But first, we're going to pay some bills, as they say, and we'll be right back with Dr. Janae. And you're listening to the Vibe Living Podcast. This is Lennis, and we're going to vibe with our sponsors for just a second.
Ladies, are you ready to vibe your life? The V.I.B.E Wellness Woman Network is your go-to space for holistic health, empowerment, and community, created just for women over 40. Inside, you'll find expert-led workshops, wellness challenges, and exclusive coaching, and a sisterhood that supports your journey to being vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered. Join today and get access to fitness tips, spiritual renewal, menopause support, and more, all designed to help you thrive in midlife and beyond. Visit the VibeWellnessWomanNetwork.com and start your journey to wellness today.
Okay, fantastic. Right before the break, I had asked you about the idea of embracing change and emergence. You know, when I came up with the idea of V.I.B.E, the first year it was being vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and emerged. And then I changed it to being vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered. I switched them back and forth because in midlife, there's a certain emergence that begins to happen. There's a certain awareness that, hey, I want to do more, or hey, something's missing. But there's definitely an oh, hey, that happens, as you go through that midlife journey. So when you think about that, tell us a little bit about your emergence, because we met on Clubhouse.
We did.
Yeah.
Can you believe
That's right. You were just a voice on the other side, this beautiful voice and the energy, as you can tell, listeners, right? All you vibers out there. Doesn't she have this energy? You cannot feel unjoyful. You cannot feel unenergetic and be around Dr. Janae. I mean, you just can't do that. She just has that effervescent personality. How did you get from going through the widowhood and the loss and all the changes to how you are now? I know you mentioned that you went to grievance coaching and all of that, but there were other things that you did too. How did you get the motivation to change and to also turn on a dime like you've been doing?
Wow, that has definitely been a journey. And, I have an inscription on my wall that, before I got remarried was on my wall to remind me, because I like having those motivational quotes around my house, because really words have power, right? And the Bible even talks about that. So what we pour into ourselves, we begin to digest that. And the quote that I have on my wall says, enjoy this moment, because this moment is your life. And see, in my earlier marriage, one of the things that I thought was, okay, I'm going to get these degrees, I'm going to get these certifications, I'm going to get these job titles, and I'll worry about enjoying life later, as though we have any control over that. And then when I saw that, I went through life-making plans, but of course, God makes the final decision. I said, oh, I got to go ahead and focus on being present in the now. And so for me, being present in the now was taking into account what the National Wellness Institute had researched, which was called the 8 Dimensions of Wellness. And for those who may Google it, because I didn't create it, but it was so transformative in my life, it identified holistically how we can look at different aspects of our lives and work on that as we're moving forward. So here I was, this woman in midlife, and I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to capture this in my writing. So I wrote a couple of books, but I'm going to more importantly implement it in my life. And so in those 8 dimensions, the first one I'd like to share, and be mindful of the fact that they're all interconnected. It's not exclusive of one another necessarily, but there's spiritual wellness, right? In these 8 dimensions of wellness. And for me, that meant me embracing regular prayer, that embraced a yoga, meditation. It doesn't necessarily mean what religion you ascribe to, but how do you get yourself centered in this space, in this experience we call life, and doing that regularly. And for me, that was prayer and gratitude journaling. Then there's physical wellness, which is one of the 8 dimensions of wellness. And that involves how am I taking care of myself physically? And that involves my nutrition, my hydration, and my sleep. So as a result, I'm more of a plant-based eater, although I love fish and shrimp, things of that nature, eat beef periodically. Hydration, I make sure that I get at least 64 ounces of water, and sleep, because of my hormones, that's still a work in progress. But those three things are so critical for our physical well-being. And then there's emotional well-being, which is what I love about spaces like yours. And that deals with making sure that we are pouring into ourselves in a way that empowers us emotionally. So that may mean embracing coaches, embracing counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists. In my community, the African American community, sometimes people, give you that side eye about pursuing counseling and therapy. And really, that's how we can heal emotionally. Then you mentioned earlier about the environment. Well, the research talks about, whether you're recycling and such, but I took also homage on the fact that my environment had to have things that were empowering me. And I love, again, your environment and the things that you said earlier. So I had to surround myself with positive quotes and sayings. And then I started collecting different types of artistic crosses, things that would empower me. And in fact, I have several scriptures in my house for Jeremiah 29:11.
Yes, that's my favorite.
Birds of a feather.
That's my favorite. In fact, I have it on the front page of my website, Jeremiah 29:11, because it says, for those of you who may not be as familiar, and Jeremiah 20:11, it says that God has placed you on this earth to live a life of joy and abundance. That is our birthright. That's why we were created. And I'm all about seeing things. I have all on my walls. They can't see this side. If someone were to see this side, they probably would think I was a little schizophrenic, because I have all these different scriptures and affirmations and all this stuff. But it works for me, because I sometimes, we go through those periods where not feeling that great or not motivated, and I just look up and start thinking that seek the Lord and His strength and seek His presence continually. Okay, have I done that today? Not really. It reminds me of who I am. And if you're not a Christian or not into the Bible, affirmations that I really do believe that when it comes to living any kind of life, but especially in midlife, you have to take a holistic approach. You have to make up your mind that you're going to do things that are going to take care of your mind, your body, and your spirit. I'll tell you a story. Not too long ago, I posted a picture of myself in a group where there are like over 400,000 women over 50. I had no idea it was that number until later. And it was just, once again, it was just nothing but intuition. The Holy Spirit said, go here and post this picture. It was a picture of me just sitting with my hair all over my head. Okay. I had not done my hair, and I didn't have much makeup on. And I was just taking some moments of quiet. And I talked about the importance of just taking 5 minutes a day and not doing anything, not even listening, not even trying to meditate or anything, just sitting. And that's what I was doing when I took that picture. And it just so happens that it was at the time of day where the light is perfect for a picture. It just came out. So I posted it. And about, I think maybe less than 4 or 5 days, or like 1,500 comments about, not so much about what I said about the peace thing, but they were like, what do you do for your skin? And so as a result, thank you. And so as a result of all of that, I put together this course on holistic skincare. And it reminded me of some things. It's not that what I put on my skin is that big of a deal. I mean, I don't use any particular brand any longer. I create my own stuff right out of the kitchen cabinet. But it's the other things that I do. What I do for myself spiritually, what I do for myself mentally, what I do for myself for my body, it all feeds into the fact that that's the reason why my skin looks that way. So many times we're looking for a quick fix. What pill can I take? What makeup can I put on? What quick diet plan can I do to get to this place? But the reality is, it took us a very long time, most of our lives, to get into the situation of where we are now, good, bad, or indifferent. So if you want to change it, it's going to take a little while to change it. So why not change it with the approach of approaching things holistically? That way, nothing gets left through the cracks. And the end result is something really wonderful, because normally, prior to our midlife, let's say, we're living life in such a fast pace that we're not even thinking about breaking things down. But this is the time to begin to break things down. And as you make a lifestyle change, how can you approach that lifestyle change mentally? How can you approach it spiritually? How can you approach it physically, body wise? And all those things work together for your ultimate
Yes.
good. That's why I love talking to you, because you talk about all those kinds of things. And when you look back over the years, what kinds of resources and things have you used to get you to your philosophy of life and living holistically?
Oh my. Well, I would say probably realizing that I couldn't do it all on my own, getting help and being able to have people who were coaches in different aspects of life. I have more years behind me than in front of me, but
Right.
I'm hoping that the Lord has me here for a much longer time. And when I came to the understanding that I don't have to be the expert in all things, I just need to connect with those resources who are able to help me with where I want to get to be. And so, that brings me to that next dimension of wellness, which is the social wellness. And that deals with our personal and professional relationships. If I have a goal personally that I want to achieve, then it's up to me to reach out to those professionally who are experts in those areas, just like people reach out to me in different capacities. And so, even as multi-talented as you are and this amazing business that you've created for yourself, you've touched bases with individuals in your same sphere of influence, but also folks that had expertise in areas that you were developing. And so what inspired you to develop that social well-being network between personal and professional relationships to achieve your dream? Because that's what was inspiring to me when I met you on Clubhouse.
I think because I had this idea of what I wanted to do and didn't have a clue. And I am not kidding. I am not blowing smoke when I tell you I did not have a clue of what I really wanted to do and had no expertise in
Oh,
wellness. I was in
wow.
human resources. I didn't know anything about wellness. I was a nutrition minor in college, but that was back in
Okay.
the Stone Age when we were working on our form of a tablet was a stone tablet. Okay, so
Girl, you need to stop.
it wasn't any of that. It was just this feeling. So I had to reach out and ask for help. And it was so interesting. Sometimes you're on the right track when something serendipitous happens. And I'll tell you what
Yes.
happened was I had an anxiety disorder. And that's why I knew I could not go back to corporate America. It was just too much. After 25 years, it was time for me to make a change. And I was going through depression as well because I didn't know what I wanted to do next, but I knew I had to do something. I had kids getting ready to go to college and, everything else. I was on my second marriage and, my husband's like, I married this woman making six figures and now she left that and she's doing what? Sitting in front of a computer doing what? So
Uh-huh.
anyway, I was talking to one of my childhood friends who knows me very well, and she was very concerned because I just wasn't talking like the normal person. So she ordered for me some self-help books and some other things. It was like a self-care kit, books and things. And I'm looking through it and I said, where did you get this? And she said, I ordered it online. And I said, oh, well, who did you order it from? She says, you know what? It's such a coincidence. This person happens to live in Sacramento. I said, what? So I went and looked her up, come to find out she was an African American woman who had been working online doing what she was doing for the last 5 years. I mean, and she was
Wow.
one of the first ever. I know that. And so she and I became best friends. And
Nice.
that was how but it was initially, sometimes you just have to ask that question. Don't be too shy to ask a question. Don't
I
be too
love
shy
that.
to ask for help. In fact, she
Yeah.
did help me. In fact, one time we had this heart to heart talk. She said, Linus, she has such a cute little high voice. She says, Linus, sometimes I feel like the only reason why you want to be my friend is because of that we work in the same area. Sometimes I just want to go somewhere and do things without talking about work. I was like, oh my God. I was so passionate about what I was doing and so glad to
It's
find someone. So now, when we get together, we don't even talk about work, but that's how it started. God sent me my best friend to comfort me, and she unwittingly gave me this basket that gave me the conduit, the super information highway conduit to my future friend who just opened up a whole other world. Sometimes we have to be open to change.
look at God. Yes.
Yeah, even though we don't understand it, even though it seems so far-fetched. There's no way in the world that you would have told me that I would have learned enough over these years to have over 200,000 followers on, I didn't even know what social media was back then, to be
That is
building
awesome.
building websites. What's a website? I didn't know anything about any of that. But you just never know if you follow that impetus, you follow
Mm.
that initial inclination, if
Mhm.
you decide to have the courage. And I think living a vibrant midlife is all about hope, courage, faith, and trust. It's all about
Ooh, I
that.
love that.
And
Mhm.
all the time, and sometimes it's like I read a book once back in the 80s that my division president gave me. It talked about the whole idea of operating without a net.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
operate this jump going for it and not sure what's going to catch you. But how many times have you actually gone for it and you did survive it?
That's
You know,
true.
maybe the
Mhm.
outcome wasn't what you wanted, but you did
Yes.
survive it. And if you were to like give advice to our listeners about how to thrive in midlife with all the things you've done and accomplished, what would that advice be?
Oh my advice would be just do it. Because at the end of the day, even like you said, if the outcome wasn't what you expected, I still look at that as success because now you know that thing that will not work in order to be able to move forward. All things that have been invented did not happen off of the first try. It usually happened after trial and error. So I would definitely say go for it. I would definitely also say reach out to people who have expertise in that area or just, put it out there to your friends because it really helps when you have accountability partners. So when you
Hmm.
put it out
Hmm.
there to your social circle, I've been thinking about doing this, which is why I love what you just shared about your friend as well, because that relates to that dimension of wellness, which is intellectual wellness. Throughout life, we can become more well by learning new things. And for me, as I age gracefully, the fact that I am learning new things in this journey is invigorating and it actually energizes me and makes me feel youthful. Then there's that thought too about your occupational wellness. As you have said, Lynn, it doesn't mean that the thing that you've been doing for 25 years, you must continue doing that for the next 25 years. If you can choose a profession or something that you enjoy doing that is in alignment with your core values and I know sometimes I find myself, getting ready to rest at night and then an idea comes to my head. So I have post-it notes in my car and on my nightstand so that I can capture those thoughts and write it down. But your occupational wellness is based on doing that thing that you feel joyous about to some extent. When I've presented to women entrepreneur groups and someone often asks, well, what if the job that I'm doing right now I don't really like? And I remind them, the bills still got to get paid, right? But
Right.
let your 9 to 5 pave the way for your 5 to 9. Because as long as you're taking care of that other financial responsibilities, which is also that eighth dimension of wellness, your financial wellness. So if you're taking care of your financial wellness and you're saving for the future and you have a budget for taking care of things that you're responsible for now, then you can go ahead and begin to create this new version of yourself that you really feel excited about. And I must admit, I wasn't always confident to do that. I started out in life achieving things for the benefit of my parents, then the benefit of, being a wife and my children. And now in this stage in my life, it's even more for me. And now that I'm remarried and I have an amazing husband, Vernon, who is retired Air Force, and he is so encouraging. So again, surrounding yourself with a support system, your partner, to say, if you want to do it, then what do we need to do to get it done? And
Right.
social media allows us, that opportunity for positive reinforcement as well. But it's been a journey, and I intend to continue to be grateful. And that's the other thing, living life with an attitude of gratitude,
Mhm.
because every day that we open our eyes, we receive two gifts. We've opened our left and our right eye. And for me, it becomes confirmation that I still have a purpose to fulfill.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
Listening to you is confirmation that you were the right guest to talk to for the very beginning of my 2025. Thank you so much. And for all of you, make sure you take a look at the show page. There you will find Dr. Janae's website, all of her social media, and what do you have coming down the pike over the next few months? And we don't normally do dates and times and things like that because this is evergreen, but what kinds of things are you
Yes.
thinking about doing?
Oh my, I am so excited about 2025. I'm right now working on a couple of contracts with some school districts to be able to introduce well-being to address burnout and stress, because the education system is really struggling now and they're losing a lot of educators and leaders. I'm also going to be releasing a book, Thrive, Recharge, and Rise, in the first quarter of 2025. And so I'm just excited with however way the Lord is ordering my steps. I am going to be obedient, and I'm just thrilled to be here. And I am thrilled about you, Linus. I tell you, yes, everybody is absolutely right about your skincare. It's amazing.
That was so funny. I was like, I'm talking about meditation and peace, and you're asking about what? But then I thought, okay, it took a holistic approach to get to this, so I'll still talk about that, but I'll talk about it in terms of how it impacts skincare or how it impacts your weight release, whatever it is. The bottom line is the mind, body, spirit, and also ultimately the vibe, being more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. Dr. Janae, thank you so much for being our first V.I.B.E guest of 2025.
Yay!
Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic day. And don't forget the vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget the vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.